I'm with Kane, and Katie is coming with new foils that you have designed. I really would like to understand what you are looking for foils before we even talk about specifically like your foils, like you personally, because a lot of people, follow you, love what you do. It would be interesting to get your take on like before you started designing those foils, what are you looking for into like foils?
Oh man, that's a good question. Before designing, before anything, I look for something that lets me have the most fun on the most days. I don't want to feel like my riding is restricted or I'm frustrated with the gear I have. And so it's like a constant push, you try something good, you want something better. You try something good, you want something better.
So now, of course, everybody is looking for the foil that has the most glide, the most low end, the most top speed, the most turning.
Yeah.
And so for you, like, how do you have like a bit of like a compromise? All right,
Sure.
I prefer, speed and.
Yeah. I prefer, like, I put a lot of emphasis on a couple things. Strength and stiffness, because most of the foils historically I've rode, I would break pretty quick.
Yeah.
So that was a huge problem for me. I'd ride something for a month or two and then have it break and either like have to make a new one if I'm making them myself or have to go find a new one or buy a new one. So that's huge for me, strength and stiffness. Another huge thing for me is, of course, efficiency and characteristics of the foil. Having kind of gentle, forgiving characteristics as far as like stall and ventilation.
Going with what we know now, getting into the range, you care about stiffness, you care about performance, and when we look at the foil, the first thing we notice, I would say, before anything else, would be the camber.
Yeah.
That's like maybe what's like the most specific about those foils. So let's start with that.
Cool. Yeah. The camber was a bit of a game of compromises and a long process of learning and computer simulation and optimization. The idea is that it lets you ride it lowers the stall speed a huge amount, allowing you to ride a smaller area, which reduces the wetted surface of the foil. So it lets you get the same low end as a regular section, but because of the reduced wetted surface and some clever shaping of the leading edge, the same top end or even a little bit faster top end. So the main characteristic of a section like this is a wide speed range.
Yeah, and that kind of like means also like we have to rethink of sizes, like in terms of like, if a rider is new to this style of foil, you might you have to break your conception of like what sizes are good for you.
Totally. Yeah. You can almost think about this as adding like a bit of extra cord.
Yeah.
It's surprising what you can get away with. Water's pretty dense and pretty heavy, and most people are riding these, in that 10 to 20% smaller range compared to other foils.
Let's go into the Atlas, because that's the one you are like holding. What is it designed for, and what are like the attributes?
The Atlas is my personal everyday foil. It is, so the central focus, like the main two lines, the Atlas and Nomad, are, because we're a new brand, I wanted to start at the middle, start at kind of your most all-around shapes. So this is the glide kind of more focused end of an all-around foil. It's something you can still, it's still fun to wing in heavy wind. I still surf foil this. I love it surf foiling, but as well, like, it's when I downwind on good days. It's when I can take on small days or light wind winging, and it still performs. So yeah, glide oriented all around shape.
And so how do you achieve, like you said, stiffness is very important to you.
Mm-hmm.
How were you able to like achieve the best stiffness into this setup?
So, yeah, there's a huge focus on the connections and achieving stiffness and future-proofing of the connections. As a new brand, you know, we have kind of the unique opportunity to look at what everyone else has done and what we've done in the past and learn from it and try and create a system that is stiff and is future-proof and is going to last a long time and through many changes in foil design potentially. So, you know, things like taking a bunch of references off of things I've broken and things I haven't broken and using that to, you know, to reference the fuselage and make sure that everything is super overbuilt. You know, using 316 stainless bolts instead of 304 stainless bolts. Just the third bolt in the mast connection. Just who knows where you'll end up in the future, and we want to be prepared for it. And that was kind of central to the design of the system here.
So now you have aluminum fuselage.
Yeah.
What was like the choice for that? You know,
Yeah.
because like, you know, some people might be like, oh no, I want to be only carbon.
Yeah. I really love aluminum for a bunch of reasons. It's perfectly consistent. Aluminum is aluminum as long as you have the same alloy. It's going to perform really well. It has a great strength for its size, which means you can get away with a pretty small diameter on the fuselage.
So you gain efficiency.
You gain efficiency
while keeping the same stiffness.
Yeah. So you reduce drag there, and it is, since it's isotropic, it's really good when there are a lot of different directions of stress. You know, when a part has to operate in a bunch of different ways. Carbon is a very directional material, and it's great, say, on a wing where you're mostly worried about flex in one or two directions, but it gets kind of crazy in the fuselage connections, and it's somewhere metal really excels. The other consideration is price. Aluminum is a very cost-effective material, and because, you know, we're kind of new on the scene with these, and it's a new system, and it's something people would have to switch to, I didn't want that to be a huge commitment.
Yeah.
I wanted a great price for performance, and that's kind of what aluminum does.
Strength is very important to you, so I can imagine durability is very important for you.
Yeah. You know, living in Maui, all we're doing is riding in salt water. We're leaving our stuff together in the back of the truck. Corrosion historically has been a huge issue on aluminum parts, right? Electrolysis between the carbon and the aluminum. We've done a few things to minimize this. So all of the connecting surfaces, the contacting surfaces, are skinned with e-glass. So the parts are insulated from each other. All of the threads in the fuselage are stainless. They have stainless inserts, so the threads won't corrode and strip and wear out or get stuck.
Yeah.
So the combination of insulating and separating there, and making sure nothing gets stuck, it will make these last a lot longer than most aluminum parts.
Yeah. Let's get into the mast. Like, the mast is a pretty important part of the foil.
Yeah.
And you've been involved, you know, with like, you know, just designing masts for even like, you know, a while. So you have quite a bit of experience in that. Talk about the mast here.
Yeah. So again, to start, we wanted something. We wanted to fill out the middle of the range before moving towards the corners. This is a mast that really excels at that. It's 15.5 millimeters thick, 125 millimeter cord, zero taper, and nice beefy blend on the base plate. It gives you a really consistent feel. I've put a lot of work into the foil section to minimize ventilation, minimize crashes, and we are using, you know, a blend of standard and high modulus to achieve the best possible price for performance. And have a mast that's stiff enough to accommodate for our big pump foils too.
Yeah, and especially because with that camber, it has such a good low end. That means it can put a bit extra
Force.
stress
Yeah.
on your mast. So,
Yeah.
That's a factor that, like, you know, if you are gonna have a really good low end, you have to have a really good mast.
Yeah, and for the team too, like I love my wing out turns, wing out slides. It puts so much stress on the mast, and if you have something that's deflecting too much, you're compromising a lot of control there. So yeah, lots of work into the mast. A couple other things, you know, put a lot of, I wanted a nice short base plate, so you maximize the room in your box. You know, I don't know what boards people are going to use this with, and it's nice to have that adjustability. Also, a lot of focus was on the hydrodynamics of the base plate. So that leading edge, super tapered, super sharp, and the back has a nice sharp corner. So it's a fairly hydrodynamic plate, and it also meshes well with our base plate shim and creates a nice ramp on the front. So you have that adjustment without compromising too much on takeoff.
So, talking about the shim,
Mm-hmm.
now that's an important thing that I was kind of like new to.
Yeah.
And so, explain to us a bit of like your like system here.
Yeah, the system is probably the part of the foil I'm most excited about. I've totally been geeking out on, you know, making my own tails and shims and all this forever. But I also recognize that it's really hard, and most people just want a setup they can put together and go, and it rides great and it's dialed. Shims are very confusing. So in my learning about how the foil works, I kind of dialed it down to a few things. The two most important factors affecting the shim are the drag of the foil on the bottom of the mast, pushing backwards, and the length of the mast, the lever that drag is acting upon. That creates your pitching force, your downward pitching force. And it's the tail's job to counteract that. So anytime you change the length of this lever or the amount of drag at the end, the tail needs to compensate for that and create a different amount of force. I've boiled it down to two numbers. There's a number on the mast and a number on the front wing. These numbers are added together, and the resulting number shim is used. So for example, this is a +1/2, and say that front wing's a -1.5. You use your -1 degree shim, and it's dialed. What's nice about it is you can put together any combination of parts in our line, and you have a pretty consistent tuning across everything. So
it's not like everything has been optimized for that size, and you know, when you don't use a shim, you kind of like have to maybe compromise a bit. Like,
yeah.
You know, you have a setup that's gonna work across the range.
Yeah.
But might be best for one size,
Mm-hmm.
and a bit compromise for the size like down and up.
Yeah, like
So-
for example, I could have matched a tail wing to every front wing, right? And so each front wing has its own tail wing that it's dialed to match. But if you change your mast length, you change that lever length. Now what? Well, now you need to change the tail again. So
Or
this
you
is a
ride
system.
with something that's not perfectly.
Yeah, or you're stuck riding something that's not perfectly dialed.
Yeah.
So this is a way to account for it. So it's shimming, but it's also kind of not shimming because the foil tells you exactly what to set up. You don't have to think or remember
Yeah,
or
you don't
test.
have to. Yeah, it's been dialed in for you.
Yeah,
But at least you know that like every single combination have been.
yeah. And if you can add to 3, you can have a dialed setup.
Yeah. So it comes with a small toolkit, which
Yep.
is like super nice. Includes everything.
Yeah. So small toolkit, you know, pretty simple box. Comes with your your tools, comes with your tail shims, all the bolts required to set up the foil, and we also include a base plate shim for people who want to take their tuning to the next level. It's something I like to chain. I like to use, say, thick in the back if I'm flat water starting or pumping, and thick in the front if I am, high speed winging or really gusty, choppy conditions.
So we covered the Atlas, but there is another model in the range, the Nomad. Where are we going? Like, what are the differences?
So the main differences are kind of purpose and what they're kind of intended to be used for. So this is more of the control and gliding side of your all-around foil, or control and turning side of your all-around foil, and this is more of the gliding and pumping side of your all-around foil. The main difference, obviously, is the aspect ratio, and the second is the sweep. So the Atlas are less swept because they're more efficiency focused. The Nomad are medium to the medium kind of sweep to help with stability, give you a really nice direct feel. Kind of like that. A good analogy for it would be, you're pushing your shopping cart, and this is a little bit more like pushing it from the back, and this is a little bit more like pulling it from the front. This is a more stable, reliable feel. There's a couple other differences in them. There's some slight differences in twist and hedral and placement to the fuselage, but the main are the aspect ratio and the sweep.
So for you, when do you decide to use one or the other?
Yeah, so I really like the Nomad for anytime I want that control, that really fine control. If I'm surf foiling in steep waves, I love the Nomad. If I'm wing foiling and it's gusty and choppy, this is the one. It's just so much more reliable, so much control. The larger sizes would be ideal for like an intermediate winger who is looking to push to more advanced maneuvers. If you want to jibe and tack and have that really reliable feel under your feet, I would go for the Nomad.
And it still has like decent glide. I mean, it's not like
Oh, yeah.
a low aspect by any means. It's like almost 9 aspect ratio. So
Yeah.
it's not, yeah.
Yeah, I call it a mid aspect, but really it's they're all around 9 AR, so it's still quite high aspect. You have no problem with glide on these. Before I had the Atlas, I was downwinding them every day. Yeah, there's also a couple differences in both lines between the size ranges, the sizes. The smaller wings of both sizes generally have a slightly lower aspect ratio and more sweep. This is because they are generally you're using a small size for higher speeds where you want more control, and so that sweep and slightly lower AR helps. The bigger sizes are slightly higher aspect ratio and slightly less swept, and again, it fits their use case of more glide and efficiency focus in the large sizes.
Okay, 2 different models in a range, but everything, of course, is you can mismatch everything.
Yeah, totally. That's part of the fun of the whole shim system. You can swap tails and not have to worry about the tuning changing. The lift is the balance of the foil will stay constant, whether you go a size larger or a size smaller in the tail. I have a lot of fun mixing and matching. So between the Atlas and Nomad tails, I love using the Atlas on the Nomad front wings. If you for a little bit more glide, say you're taking your Nomad out in lighter wind or flatter water, Atlas tail, super fun. The opposite's true with the Atlas front wings and the Nomad tail wing. Say for surf foiling, I always run the Atlas with my Nomad 155. It loosens up the rail to rail a ton. You can hang the tip out a little bit farther, and winging, it's more tolerant to choppy water. So huge fun mixing and matching the 2 different lines of tails. We have 2 different fuse lengths. We have a 63 and a 56 fuselage. Really what we're doing is we're just moving the tail wing slightly closer to the front wing. The mast and front wing relationship stays the same. And I like the short fuse mostly for surf foiling, for wake foiling. If you're on a big front wing and you want to loosen it up a bit, the short fuse is great for that. The long fuse is much more pitch stable and tends to work better with the larger size front wings. So flat water pump, the beginner foil, or if you just want something that's solid and reliable and super simple to ride, long fuse, kind of the bread and butter. I would put anybody on this.
So last thing, attention to the detail again is some like really nice bags that fit every part, and that actually you can put together, so things are not, you don't have like pieces flying around in your van. Fuselage, yeah, perfect.
Sticks right on there, keep it together.
Keep it protected really well.
Simple bags, it's a durable material, they cover the whole part, and they cover the part when everything is put together. So this fuselage bag fits when all the parts are assembled. So it's not damaging anything when you put it in your car or ride up on a downwind or whenever you want to protect your gear.
Perfect, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kai.
Thank you so much.
And love those foils.
Yeah, I'm excited to share, and I'm excited to hear what everyone thinks.
Cool.